We're going to talk about second and third order effects of vibe coding today and how the future is going to look a lot more entrepreneurial for everyone. There are two, maybe three types of speculation: responsible, irresponsible, and degenerate gambling. I got the term irresponsible speculation from one of my favorite podcasts, Children of the Watch, a Star Wars show. Most of the show is comprised of the hosts, Alex and Mac, doing beat-by-beat breakdowns of Star Wars TV shows. It's like rewatching the show with your most knowledgeable Star Wars friends. They clue you in on obscure bits of lore that you had no idea nor interest in pursuing independently by reading books or comics, but are interesting to hear about nonetheless. The last 20% of the podcast is generally for the hosts to extrapolate from the text of the episode they just covered, and dare say speculate irresponsibly about what could possibly happen next in the Star Wars universe. The speculation is irresponsible because it is free of responsibility to hold on to and defend any idea. Releasing the weight of committing to any one idea allows one to wildly think outside of the box and follow rabbit trails that may or may not be there. This is my attempt at responsibly and irresponsibly speculating on what is going to happen in 2026 and beyond because of vibe coding. We're going to get a little sidetracked, but it's going to be necessary for us to work through to redeploy our resources. Responsible speculation, first order effects. I'm no economist, but I'll attempt to play one in this newsletter. Maybe I'll ask Claude to roleplay one at the end. You have my word that I'm writing all my own original thoughts down first, and then I'll prompt Claude after with, "You're the world's greatest vibe coding economist. Predict the second and third order effects of what is going to happen over the next year, 5 and 10 years due to vibe coding. What are events that I can bet on in Poly Market to make $1 million because of these effects? Make no mistakes." First order effect. Cost of code is going to zero. This one's easy because we see it already. We can generate insane amounts of code for $200 a month with Claude Code. Not just insane amounts, but also of insane quality for $200 a month compared to a developer hourly rate if you follow a process. See my previous newsletter for an example of the process. When I make the time, I have no doubt that I can code an entire web and mobile app end-to-end, fully tested with continuous integration and deployments. My goal is to make Roxas git commit to social media post app as an example of what a really real application that I built entirely by myself looks like. If I can build off that assumption, then basically anybody can soon enough. I'm not a coding guru, I just glue systems together as a DevOps engineer. This means that there's now a forest of low-hanging fruit available to anyone willing to pony up a new boutique gym type of monthly subscription and invest in themselves. On my live streams, in the Gastown Discord, I encourage people, especially developers, to start treating some percentage of their personal expenses like a business, because it may soon become one. $200 a month investing in yourself, crash out. Feel free to skip. As markety sounding as this does, since it does come from Alex Hormozy, the person you become through experience is the ultimate investment. Who are you but a collection of your experiences at the end of your life? To get many types of experiences that are valuable skills, you need to pay money. If your choice is between paying tens of thousands of dollars in traditional educational degrees, seminars, masterminds, courses, books, etc., or the relative steal of just $200 a month for Claude Code Max 20x, let's not cheap out on the tool of the century that enables us to build our own versions of all the other tools. Let me crash out further. Before I do, let me preamble this by saying everyone's situation is different. It's a hard economy out there. Layoffs are real. I get it. You can't afford anything extra right now because times are hard and you have mouths to feed. The following does not apply to you. By continuing to read or to listen past this paragraph in the section, I assume you have $200 per month to spare that would otherwise go into drinks, sports betting, crypto, a Robinhood account, or otherwise discretionary income, and you're willing to listen to a pitch on the SME 500, yet another Alex Hormozy thing. On the low end, for an entry-level software developer, your average yearly salary in the US is $100K. After taxes and deductions, it's probably more like 70 grand take home. $5,800 a month, rough ballparking here. Claude Code Max 20x is 3.5% of your take home pay. That's 3.5% investing directly into your future. You know of at least one person with a crypto allocations bigger than that. Reinvesting into your skills as a software developer enables you to make more money through your job with promotions or through a more entrepreneurial channel. At the very minimum, you will continue to stay employed and get a 3 to 5% yearly increase if you're actually improving your vibe coding. There you go. It pays for itself. Don't get me started. That vibe coding is basically a video game. It is pretty enjoyable to do as a pastime while you are learning and actively improving a valuable skill. That 3.5% of your post-tax income, and I'm not even using the much smaller percentage pre-tax, where we normally calculate these types of things, like 15% for 401k, etc. Claude Code is 2.4% for the year in that case. If you're not willing to think about this as a reinvestment in yourself for your continued education to continue to earn the other 96.5% of your income, nor willing to stay on top of the relevant tech trends, possibly the tech trend that unlocks the rest of them, you may hit a ceiling in your career. Now you don't have to wonder why. The same crash out applies for any of the many supporting subscription services like AWS or hardware that help you become better at your profession. I just went through this anguish with buying a personal MacBook Pro at the end of 2024, and I just paid it off in 2025. It turned out fine. I'm writing to you on it now. When my old machine died, I was just getting serious about posting jiu-jitsu content that has since turned into, well, this. I was trying to post to Instagram every day and grow my following, but my old Mac laptop from 2016 was super slow with editing on the not even latest version of Final Cut Pro. Eventually didn't boot back up one day and I had to bite the bullet on a $300 a month subscription to a new computer for 12 months. Attack of the Clones. Remember how I said there's now a forest of low-hanging fruit for anyone with $200 and some time to create an app? Everyone and their mother has the same ideas as you. If you're into vibe coding with agents, everyone is building their own agent orchestrator. There are dozens of them, probably hundreds of them, and they're going to keep coming even though we have plenty. The other examples of these clone apps are habit trackers, notes apps, to-do lists, calorie trackers, etc. We're seeing droves of these because we all spawned near the same point in the idea forest. Literally some dude on Twitter has already launched my idea for Roxas of turning Git commits into social media posts. I didn't even predict that far down the road correctly, which is what inspired this post. That's how quickly people are moving. You can put your head down for a couple of months and come out the other side with a fully baked app. I want to try to recalibrate my predictions here because I thought I was being super sneaky with my idea, but apparently other computer nerds have the same sense of putting together coding and marketing like I do to create a full stack solopreneur. I believe I was right on the idea, but wrong on the timescale. I'm still going to go work on Roxas myself to have an example project of what I can do with vibe coding. I'm going to have to make some wider and longer term predictions for how we're all going to make money in the future. Irresponsible speculation, second order effects. Given how fast I was wrong about the timescale of Roxas, I may have to throw some darts here and move up timelines as to how quickly various people are going to adopt vibe coding and when we're going to see the value out of it. Taste is ultimately going to win. Like Steve Jobs said, the only problem with Microsoft is they have absolutely no taste. And I don't mean that in a small way. I mean that in a big way, in the sense that they don't think of original ideas and they don't bring much culture into their products. Knowing what people want, even if they don't know themselves, is in such a way that it helps you decide what to build is the most valuable skill right now. Figuring out what people want is the constraint to a business now post vibe coding. It may have been to some degree before, since that's why we hire product managers to try to understand the customer and their needs, but now it's basically the only skill that matters. Knowing what problem to solve. People who can vibe code are solvers in need of a problem. This encourages us not to be one-dimensional. There's only so many vibe coders in need of yet another agent orchestrator. People can only focus their attention on one or two main ones, and the rest are just going to be untouched in a year. If Anthropic releases an official one, it's over, and they have since I've written this. Have hobbies. Go out and do things and meet people. You're the sum of all of your experiences, remember? Go and have some new and diverse ones in order to find a new perspective. If you had a great idea from your current perspective, you would be building it already. And you might. And if you are, cool. I'm happy for you. I'm just trying to help the others here. Since we're all nerds, doing something new is like taking the cross product of your experience matrix with a new vector that you haven't experienced before. You get a new resulting vector that is different and orthogonal to the two original input ones. Point is, anything can be coded up in an afternoon. What you decide to code is now the most important thing. That's not to say be paralyzed in fear about coding. the wrong thing and then end up not coding anything because of analysis paralysis. It's more like we need to take deliberate shots on goal and iterate closer and closer to what the customer wants to achieve product market fit. We want to build the less wrong thing over time. We need to have an ability to get our product out in front of customers and have ways to find them. Distribution is ultimately going to win. As an engineering rule of thumb, 50% of engineering is doing the thing and the other half is talking about it. Just a thing that I've heard as a quote. This is what I'm personally betting on. Big reveal, this whole YouTube channel, newsletter, and social media presence. I've always had this thing of weirdly enjoying communicating more than the average engineer. I'm technical, but also not the engineer who likes to code and learn a new programming language on the weekends, how I do with vibe coding. If you're reading this, you've fallen into my trap. I get playing to your strengths and doubling down on what you're good at. If you're a super technical galaxy brain engineer, just keep doing that. Just talk about it a little bit more. Trust in institutions has fallen off a cliff in the last 10 years, but trust in individual people, quote unquote influencers, yuck, has never been higher. I know it's cringe to want to become a thought leader, but maybe it's less cringe to just be yourself and turning your thoughts into artifacts online that can be pushed out and scaled out to thousands of like-minded people. Just talking about vibe coding for the last 6 weeks, 5 months afterwards, but when I wrote this in the first 6 weeks, has surfaced some interesting opportunities. Nothing real yet, but I'm getting more specific inbound messages than ever before, all because I'm talking about a thing that I'm doing. It happens to be a very hot topic right now and will be for this foreseeable future. But hey, you don't get to pick what you feel called to do and wake up in the middle of the night feeling compelled to write. Strike while the iron is hot. I'm amazed that over 50 people are subscribed to the email version of this newsletter, with maybe 3 being friends and family. There seems to be a momentum that you get when you achieve some amount of traction. You get some amount of compounding snowballing effects over time. You just have to keep going and producing good enough artifacts of yourself. You cannot be a perfectionist and ship nothing. I'm not saying I'm even a mildly successful thought leader yet, but I'm much further along than I was when I started at the beginning of December 2025. No coders are going to need really real apps soon. This is a 6 to 12 month thesis. This is currently May when I'm recording this, and I think I'm pretty right on this. Some percentage of vibe-coded apps are going to have a magic combination of taste, distribution, and a working product to scale at a pace that neither the app owner nor the vibe coding infra provider, Lovable, Replit, etc., that they will sit on will expect. Or maybe the providers do expect it and are charging an arm and a leg margin premium on top of AWS GCP cloud infrastructure that they are wrapping, lowering costs. This may be a good deal and even preferable to solopreneurs, but vibe-coded apps with investors who look at margins are going to try to drive costs down. They know that long-term, every percentage point that they can lower on the expense side, they can either take as profit or reinvest back into the business to make it grow more. For software engineers who are open to the idea of vibe-coded apps, there will be a selling pickaxes and a gold rush opening up for consulting, and not the snarky, I'm going to clean up your slop code in 6 months type of consulting, but a real lift and shift off of Lovable onto AWS to get our costs down and scale more types of partnership. Hint, you get more looks at these if you talk about your skills with software engineering and vibe coding on the internet. Software engineering process. Another part of vibe coder apps hitting traction is that there are now consequences to making changes that may break things. People are paying you money and they expect to get a working product at least 99% of the time. If you truly have vibe coded your app and don't know how it works and aren't a software developer, you need some idea of how to become a software development shop. You need to learn how to implement a battle-tested process that ensures the quality of your app and gives you confidence in the changes that you make. Check out how you can assess yourself with my free Day 2 readiness prompt here. Link down in the description. If you're someone technical reading this, get your practice reps in with migrating apps from Lovable, Replit, N8N, etc., and implementing software engineering best practices for them because a wave is coming. Head of AI Enablement is an achievable job title for vibe coders. If you're reading this newsletter, congratulations. You're ahead of most people in terms of adopting vibe coding and AI in general as part of your day-to-day workflow. Because there's so much resistance and pushback to AI slop code, whoever can do it the most, and therefore the best, is going to get a fast track to increase responsibility and compensation to try to teach the rest of their coworkers to do the same. Anthropic and the other AI companies don't have enough sales engineers to train all of their customers on an ongoing basis to maximize the amount of tokens that they purchase. There have to be internal champions who take this on and translate the scant training that the model companies provide into actionable steps for their company's internal processes for others to ramp up on. If you're here this early and you talk about AI at your company, writing, presenting, distribution, remember, chances are you can show that you make a large impact to the company's productivity and therefore should be compensated for it. As always, no guarantees, but you can make this your job if you really do it enough and are good at it. Irresponsible speculation, third order effects. The following are ripple effects that are probably going to happen anyway, but have recent personal data points to extrapolate from. The future of education is learned by doing. This week, I got asked about building a custom agent with LangChain or N8N and how to test it in a normal software development process. I embarrassingly had no idea of how either agent building technology worked. Over the course of 3 hours, I built 2 different terminal-based LangChain RAG chat agents with Claude Code. One was a SQL agent that could query an example database with natural language. The second was a chat agent trained on a set of informational PDFs on my computer. I built both with my plan, implement, review, enterprise vibe code TM method. Just kidding. It was great that they both worked right away. But what was even more magical was when I asked Claude Code, hey, explain how this works. Claude came back with a whole real-ass step-by-step example of how the agent, one, was trained on the PDFs, how they were chunked, how they were embedded into the Chroma DB database as 1500 dimension vectors, how a query relevant to the content of my PDFs would get embedded, and then how it would do a cosine similarity search in the vector database, and 3, how evals work to test my agents over time. Claude showed me the real example steps in context of what the code was going to do. Now just extrapolate this out to virtually anything else. If I had this in chemistry class, I probably would have done a lot better. I would have sat there and played with different simulated chemical reactions and gotten an intuitive sense of how certain chemicals react together. That would have been infinitely more interesting than rote memorizing facts about chemicals over time to regurgitate for the test. The intuitive sense and curiosity would have propelled me to gather more knowledge about the subject rather than being forced to just memorize a bunch of facts for the sake of learning facts and then promptly forget them the next quarter. Same thing with a MATLAB or Wolfram Alpha for math and physics. Education in the traditional 4-year degree sense is broken. The ROI is no longer there for most people. We're going to see a lot more individual project tinkerers who go really deep in one particular niche and will accidentally make a discovery or business because they didn't know that they weren't supposed to do something, or at the very minimum, they're motivated to go back and pursue an a la carte traditional route for this hyper-specific micro niche that they're interested in. Institutions will adopt project-based learning, and the curriculum will become much more personalized to students. At least the good ones will be. I can also see people getting a lot of surface level knowledge and Dunning-Krugering their way into thinking that they're geniuses and go down a self-congratulatory AI-induced psychosis. We're playing with fire here, but we will adapt. Chekhov's degenerate gambling sidebar. Not terribly AI related, but prediction markets are going mainstream. Seems like an incredible conflict of interest for nearly anyone who is newsworthy. This isn't just for the highest ranking officials, but also in the future, potentially every local election has real money riding on it to be influenced, as if there wasn't enough already. Polymarket's goal is to financialize everything. Eventually, every little action someone with enough newsworthy status, which is lower than you think, that they can take will eventually have a market around it. There will be a meta financial incentives for your local mayor to approve or shut down a project. The local city council to vote for or against an ordinance just based on how much money they can make on the least likely option. We're in the worst timeline. Claude's prediction. If you want to read the full report, click link in the description. Basically, I'm right. It's nothing you haven't heard before. All right, sidebar. Frugality head trash. I know what it's like to want to be frugal. Read cheap. You may have felt some material insecurity or personal exposure to the void, lack of safety nets, and capitalism before, and you never want to feel that again. I've been there, or you got red-pilled into the Reddit FIRE pipeline, financial independence retire early pipeline. It would seem like the right hyper-optimal FIRE method approved way that you should feel about spending money on nice, useful things is bad, but also feel free to rebel against it. It's your one shot at this life. Why are you going to let anyone else who isn't in your life day to day tell you what to do, especially some nerds on the internet? I've recently come around to this same idea about vacations. Well, that's a different post. I had to get rid of the head trash around the don't spend money now, save for later desire to retire early. I'll suffer and work hard for 15 years and then enjoy my life. Who does that sound like? You're living your life right now and you're not enjoying it. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. Easy to optimize and simply maximize a certain aspect of your life, but that's not a common experience for most people. We need to juggle piloting and reassembling the plane while it's flying. The reality is that FIRE works for very few people with certain personality dispositions and who leave the workforce mentally and physically healthy enough to enjoy their well-earned, saved, and invested money. It's a self-selecting, self-rewarding type of thing. It's sort of not everyone is meant to do jujitsu, even though I feel like everybody would, on paper, benefit in some way. Since money is a thing that everyone has to care about, we just feel like we should operate a certain way because we're engineers. We like logical arguments, we like math, and we like to see optimal things go up and to the right. You're only going to be this young once. The book Die With Zero by Bill Perkins has more ideas about how to spend your money optimizing for experiences rather than total dollar amount at the end of your life. TLDR, because I didn't even read the book. I just listened to him on some podcasts. Take that European walking tour vacation now rather than when you're 60 with mobility and energy issues. Enjoy that nice dinner with your partner. Think about giving your kids a down payment for a house when they're 30 versus an inheritance when they're 60, etc. I'm just going to extend his thinking and invest in yourself by giving yourself experiences of building stuff with relatively inexpensive tools now that can be incredibly valuable later. I really didn't want to add another monthly payment for the laptop I ended up buying, but it was the only way I could pursue this creative project that meant a lot to me. I felt like I needed to try it out and see it through at that point in my life. My wife encouraged me to invest in myself since I was committed to doing all that editing work anyways. There was no way around getting a new computer that did what I needed to do as fast as I needed to do it. $300 a month for 12 months was the prerequisite for me to invest in the SME 500. I'm grateful for it. By continuing to invest in the SME 500, I'm already seeing traction by virtue of the fact that you are reading this, likely a complete stranger who found me yapping about vibe coding on the internet. Thank you.